Today I'm going to try and give you an update on polio. As George told you, I've been to Egypt and to Nigeria on polio immunization trips. My wife is the one who got it all started. In 2003, she went to Niger, which at the time was about the poorest country in the world. And she really saw firsthand how difficult it can be. So she came home and she said, "Chuck, you have to go with me on the next trip." So the next trip was Egypt. And we continued. Then last year, she came and talked to you about her trip to India. So she's done 4 polio immunization trips. Now, these are life-changing trips, but I have to say, if you have any interest at all in doing a trip, maybe to India, next year might be the last opportunity. And I made a comment about that in this district dispatch. But there is a tour group, Howard Tours. Brad Howard is a director with Rotary, but he owns a tour group also. But he will be running a trip to India, where it might be the last opportunity for a Rotarian to do the National Immunization Days. After a country is declared polio-free, 3 years later they're polio-free, then we go another 3 years for a total of 6, where we really concentrate on the immunizations. And after that period, it's not quite as big a deal. They leave it more to the local health workers. They don't try to bring in more international people to help out and to publicize it. So we'll talk a little bit about what polio is and bring you up to date on some of the achievements and challenges we've had. If you look at the, it's a scale, but the carving on the left, it's an old Egyptian carving, and you can see the fellow with a crutch, right in the center, got a crutch, withered leg. He had polio, and we're talking 1500 BC or so. So it's been around a long time, and it's still around, but we're in the throes of eradicating it completely. If you can see the upper right, those are iron lungs. Iron lungs were used to help people breathe when they had polio. Polio affected you in different ways. For some people, it was only the limbs. They were flaccid, so it would be like rubber bones. But other times, it would affect the lung area where they couldn't breathe, they couldn't get the pressure. So these iron lungs would create a pressure, pushing and exhaling for you. And sometimes people would be in for a few months. Other times people would be in for years and years. I read an article about a man a couple years ago. He was 60 years old, still living in an iron lung. He was an attorney, and he would get out of the iron lung a couple hours a day and go out to do his practice, but then back into the iron lung. George mentioned I teach exercise classes to seniors, and one of the ladies, she's about 85, she was a student nurse during the epidemics of around 1950, and she said the older nurses, the registered nurses and what have you, would not go near the polio ward. They sent the young nurses, the brand new nurses, student nurses in to care for these patients. It was such a time we had no idea what really caused it. Everybody was fearful of it. I think these nurses were afraid if they touched somebody, they might get the disease. Well, it doesn't work that way, but those were the fears we had at the time. So we've had a lot of achievements. First, there are 3 types of polio. And these 3 types paralyzed in all 125 countries back in 1988. Type 2 was eradicated in 1999. That's the last case we had, and that was in India. We haven't seen a case since. Type 3, we haven't seen since 2012, and we're left with type 1. And that, although it is the most crippling, it's one, now that we're down to only one, should be easier for us to finally eradicate. Some of the benefits we've received, because of our polio initiative, we've been involved in public health also. We have 146 polio laboratories that we've helped pay for throughout the world. So that gets down into the health workers in each community. Things like measles as well as polio from 30% to, what do we say, 80%, I think it got up to. And the one I'm really proud of is in Nigeria. We had an outbreak of Ebola there in West Africa. If you remember, Nigeria had that too, but it was only a week or so we heard about Nigeria. Because the polio labs and the people who have been involved in polio were able to take the measures necessary to keep it from spreading. So, as it was going into the Ivory Coast and all, and it was really a terrible disease, in Nigeria it was contained thanks to having these health centers set up. So what still needs to be done? We made a lot of gains, but if we don't continue, polio will not go away. You can pretty much say that if we stop immunizing, within 10 years there would be 200,000 new cases of polio. It will just start growing that fast. So, our campaigns and surveillance, hundreds of millions of children will continue to be immunized. Let's say 450 million is here. And then we will continue to have our surveillance activities. One thing we do is check sewage. As I said, it comes through the gut. You check the sewage and see if there's any polio virus in the sewers. Last year, at our international convention last June, we committed $1.2 billion. And the Bill Gates Foundation is part of that with committing $450 million. And we as Rotarians committed $50 million a year for the next 3 years. We have to keep up our routine. We can't stop. We found out what happens when you stop giving immunizations last year in Traverse City. We had outbreaks of measles, just because the mothers wouldn't immunize their children. They thought somebody else would make sure their kids wouldn't get measles. Sorry, Mom, it's up to you to make sure your kids are free from these diseases. There's no excuse. We have proof that it works. Why would we take a chance, especially with our own children? Doesn't make sense. We have to continue to share what we've learned about general health throughout these communities. It's not just polio these people are worried about. They're worried about all the different diseases that we don't even think of, but they are coming rampant in these third world countries. So right now we're in the middle of a fundraising campaign. It seems like we've been that way since before I joined Rotary. So for every $25 that's given, $50 will be matched from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So you give $1, they give $2, we get $3 total. And that would be up to $50 million. We just passed out a check for $50 million, or 49.5, a couple weeks ago. So the money is, as it comes in, it's immediately getting back out there where it can be best used. So we have a district goal. We're also asking every club to have fundraisers or donations or what to get up to $1,500 per club. That's what we're asking for, but a club like mine, I expect at least $5,000. You know, to get $2,000 out of me and my wife. So if they can't come up with another $3, there's something really wrong, isn't there? So this will give you a shot of where the money goes. Of that percentage, so much goes to organizational support, technical assistance, only 3% vaccine, and surveillance 11%, social mobilization, getting the people out there, having an atmosphere that people will want to get their children immunized. That's 20%. Research, 2%. My wife mentioned when she was in India, they were about to start the immunizations in an hour or two, so they began with a band. A couple guys with drums are pounding on the drums, making all kinds of noise, horns blowing. She said, we're marching down the street. People are coming out, standing on the roofs, cheering us on. Just a lot of excitement. I think it was like the Pied Piper going in. They come in and get to the booth, and now we've got the kids lined up, and let's give our immunization drives. And this is the top recipients in our dollars from the beginning. Nigeria, $234 million. I mean, we're really have been putting out a lot of money, and we've seen a lot of results. The G20 summit in the spring of this year, they talked about it. I was in Germany. And the other job we have is to raise awareness, and that's what we're doing today. We are talking about it. We're letting people know that polio is still out there, and we have to do something, and we can do something. Our Rotary organization is using social media to Rotarian magazines, to whatever they can think of to keep that communication going. So what's your role? Well, we want to learn about it. We want to share what we've learned, and then we want to donate. Everybody should be able to give something to polio. We're passing the jar. That's weekly, a little bit of money. The boy doesn't add up. And if we would only all do that little bit. Some of you might have been able to watch the polio update October 24th. I missed it. My wife made me go to Italy with her. So just the things we go through. But at any rate, if you are interested, you can still see the live stream of it. It's available through npolio.org or the Rotary website will get it to you. So finally, we're getting near the end. We're almost there. We're this close to ending this disease.